Welcome to my story. I didn't get an invitation to my brother's wedding, so instead of sitting at home and pretending it didn't hurt, I packed my bags and went on a trip. Sorry, dear, this event is only for the people we actually love, my mother said. My dad added, some people just don't belong at family celebrations. My aunt chimed in, real family only means real family. Finally, a wedding without the family disappointment. When the wedding was canceled because of unpaid debts, the entire family suddenly turned desperate and started begging me for help. But by then, it was too late. My name is Madison Cole. I'm 28 years old, and if you think you already know how this ends, you'll want to keep reading. What happens when the scapegoat they abandoned turns out to hold the very key to their survival? I can still feel the sting in my chest when the invitation never arrived. Everyone else proudly received glossy envelopes tied with shimmering gold ribbon, while my mailbox stayed hauntingly empty. When I asked about it, my mother's words slid out like venom. Only for people we love. My dad chuckled, calling me the family disappointment, and my aunt twisted the knife deeper with her smug declaration of real family. So, I did the only thing left for me to do. I smiled, booked a flight, and left. While they toasted champagne and rehearsed their picture-perfect speeches, I wandered cobblestone streets in a city I had always dreamed of visiting. I snapped photos of sunsets, ate meals alone, but in peace, and whispered to myself, they can't hurt me if I'm not there to be hurt. Still, pain lingers, even in paradise. Their cruel voices replayed in my head each night, a rejection sharp enough to echo across oceans. Yet, the distance brought me clarity. If I was always the disappointment, then why had they leaned on me so many times before? Why was I the one who paid their bills when no one else could? Then came the twist. A frantic message appeared on my phone during the trip. Wedding canceled. We need you. Please help. I stared at the words until they blurred. The very people who erased me from their perfect family portrait now begged for my help to rewrite their story. But I had already chosen my role, and it wasn't theirs to decide anymore. The messages didn't stop. By the time my plane landed back home, my phone was overflowing. From Mom. Madison, we were just joking. You know that. Please, you have to help us fix this. From Dad. It's just money. Families help each other. Don't be stubborn. From Aunt. If you cared about your brother at all, you wouldn't let his big day fall apart. I scrolled through them in silence, each word dripping with hypocrisy. A week ago, I was the disappointment, the outcast, the one who didn't belong. Now, overnight, I had become their lifeline. I didn't answer their calls. Instead, I dropped my bags on the floor of my small apartment, lit a single candle, and sat very still at my kitchen table until the room stopped spinning. Their desperation was hardly surprising. It followed the same script they always used. They had built this wedding the same way they built every glossy facade in our family, on borrowed money, inflated pride, and the quiet assumption that I would stitch everything together from the shadows. This time, though, the brittle foundation finally split. The phone rang again. My brother's voice came through, raw and pleading. Maddie, please. You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. We just need $20,000 to clear the venue's debt. Then everything can go ahead as planned. I laughed. A short, sharp sound that tasted like iron. I thought I wasn't real family, I said. Silence stretched thin across the line. Then he muttered, I didn't mean it like that. But he had meant it. All of them had. That night I poured a glass of wine, scrolled through my photos, and posted one from my trip. Me framed by a bleeding sunset, hair loose, shoulders unburdened. The caption read, sometimes exclusion is the gift. Sometimes distance is the cure. And sometimes the wedding that wasn't meant for you was never meant to happen at all. By morning, the likes and comments had multiplied, friends praising my courage, strangers resonating with the ache. My family's panic only grew louder, while inside me a strange calm settled. The next morning, a voicemail from my mother waited. Her sobs were theatrical, almost practiced. "Madison, please. We didn't mean it. We were under so much stress. You're our daughter. Of course you belong. Just don't punish us now." That word, punish, cut in a way she could not have anticipated. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was simply doing what they had already done to me. I was absent from what they valued most, absent from their performances, absent from the milestones they reserved for real family. By noon, my dad tried his favorite tactic, authority. "Enough games," he said. "You have the money. We know you do. Family pulls together in times like this. Step up." I placed the phone on the table and let his words rattle in the silence. For years, I had stepped up, paying medical bills, covering utilities, wiring money into a black hole that swallowed my sacrifices without thanks. And yet, when joy came, when milestones were celebrated, I was heir. That was the script they had written for me. The invisible daughter, the family's safety net but never its pride. Now, for the first time, they were forced to read the lesson I had written for them. Later that day, Aunt Lydia appeared at my doorstep. Her eyes darted nervously, her smile stretched thin, her voice dripping with counterfeit sweetness. "Madison, sweetheart, your brother's heartbroken. You don't want this on your conscience. Imagine the shame if the wedding doesn't happen." I tilted my head, letting her hear the steel in my voice. "Imagine the shame when your words about real family are the reason I'm not interested." Her lips parted, searching for a defense, but none came. She left in haste, her heels clattering against the pavement like a retreating soldier abandoning the front line. That evening, I sat on my balcony while the city hummed beneath me. I thought of the little girl I once was, hungry for approval, clutching at scraps of affection, believing that one day, if I tried hard enough, they might finally call me enough. But that girl was gone. I no longer ached for their speeches, their staged photographs, or their hollow blessings. What I wanted was simpler, fiercer, the freedom I had already claimed. As the night air curled around me, I felt the truth settle in my chest like an anchor finally dropped. They had disinvited me from their celebration, but in doing so, they had unknowingly granted me the greatest gift of all, freedom from their illusion. By the fourth day, their panic had unraveled into full-blown chaos. The wedding planner quit, vendors pulled their services, and whispers spread like wildfire through the community. The Cole family can't even pay their bills. The polished facade they had worked so hard to maintain, the same facade they had built by excluding me, was collapsing in plain sight. My brother called again, his voice carrying something I had never heard before. Not pride, not arrogance, but raw fear. "Maddie, I know we hurt you, but you don't understand. If this wedding doesn't happen, we lose everything. Our reputation, our standing. People will think we're a joke." I let the silence press down on him before answering. "You thought I was a joke first. Remember Mom's words? Dad's laugh? Aunt's speech about real family? That wasn't just a slip of the tongue. That was the truth you believed." On the other end, his breath hitched. "We were wrong." The words trembled, fragile, almost like glass. But apologies are not currency. They cannot erase years of being dismissed, ignored, and humiliated. I thought of the countless times I had saved them before, quietly slipping money into Dad's account, covering Mom's credit card debt, pretending not to notice when my help vanished into their silence. Every sacrifice had been swallowed without acknowledgement, without gratitude. Not this time. That night, I posted again. a photo of the plane ticket stub from the trip I'd taken instead of attending their wedding. The caption was razor-edged but steady. Funny how the people who don't invite you to their table always expect you to foot the bill. Not anymore. The response was instant. Friends rallied, strangers applauded, and even distant relatives reached out privately with quiet notes of support. Meanwhile, my family's begging doubled in volume, but I didn't flinch. For the first time, I understood with perfect clarity. Their so-called approval had never been love. It had always been dependence disguised as affection. And now, without me to prop them up, they were finally forced to face the truth. By the weekend, the wedding was officially dead. The venue issued a statement that was polite but merciless. Due to unpaid balances, the Cole reservation has been canceled. The news traveled quickly. Neighbors whispered. Friends canceled travel plans. And the flawless image my family had clung to for years shattered in a single night. I watched from the stillness of my apartment, sipping coffee as I scrolled through the online fallout. My brother's fiancé posted cryptic captions about betrayal. Mom abandoned her social media entirely. And Dad, once so loud, so unshakable, looked like a ghost in the last photo someone snapped of him at the grocery store. As for me, I felt lighter than I had in years. That evening, Aunt Lydia left a voicemail. Her voice had shifted from smug superiority to trembling regret. Madison, we shouldn't have said those things. We were cruel. But can't you find it in your heart to help us rebuild? Your family. Family. The word tasted bitter now. Real family only means real family. Those had been her words once. The knife she twisted at the dinner table while others laughed. Now she wielded family like a shield, hoping I'd forget the way she had used it to cut me down. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my journal and wrote, "Exclusion reveals truth faster than any toast. They taught me I didn't belong. And now, I believe them." When I closed the book, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the raw, burning way I had been. What I felt was far stronger. I was free. Free from their expectations. Free from their control. Free from the endless cycle of being used as a crutch in private while being dismissed in public. For once, their downfall wasn't mine to repair. That was the most poetic justice of all. Because in pushing me out, they had taught me the most valuable lesson. I never needed their table. I could build my own, and it would never be built on debt. The calls slowed after the cancellation, but not out of surrender. It was pride now, their final weapon. My mom sent a single text. "You've embarrassed us enough. I hope you're happy." My dad followed with something colder still. "Don't bother coming back. You made your choice." I read them both twice, waiting for the familiar sting. But nothing came. No ache, no guilt, only clarity. They hadn't disowned me because I was cruel. They had disowned me because I stopped being useful. Meanwhile, my life kept moving forward. My career thrived, my savings remained untouched, and my circle of friends, the ones who had always truly seen me, grew wider with people who valued me, not for what I gave, but for who I was. On Friday, a coworker invited me to a small gathering. I laughed more in that one evening than I had in months under my parents' roof. There were no speeches to endure, no comparisons to survive, no invisible role I was forced to play. There was only warmth. Genuine, simple, unearned warmth. That night, as I walked home beneath the glow of the city lights, a truth crystallized. The family I had been chasing all my life wasn't the one I was born into. It was the one I was quietly, steadily building for myself. Still, I couldn't resist one final move. I posted another photo, a table crowded with friends, glasses raised high, joy radiating across every unguarded face. The caption was simple. "Real family isn't defined by invitations. It's defined by love, and tonight, I finally felt it. Within minutes, the comments flooded in. Dozens cheered me on. Some admitted they had endured the same kind of emotional erasure, the same cruel rewriting of belonging. My inbox filled with solidarity, strangers turning into allies through shared scars. And somewhere, in their darkened, silent house, I knew my parents were watching too. The same silence they once wielded to erase me had become their punishment, a silence heavy with my absence, my growth, and my joy beyond their reach. They had tried to cut me out, but in the end, the only lifeline they severed was their own. By the 7th week, that silence finally cracked. My mom called late at night, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. "Madison, we can't face people anymore. Everyone knows your brother's fiancé left. We lost everything." I listened quietly, my fingers tracing the rim of my glass. The family who had once crowned me the disappointment now sat in the ruins of their own performance. She continued, desperate, her voice breaking. "We were wrong about you, about everything. Please, just talk to us." Her words should have been healing, but they weren't. Apologies spoken only in desperation don't carry truth. They carry survival. The next day, my brother texted, "Maddie, I need you. I'll pay you back. I swear." I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. He wasn't seeking reconciliation, he was seeking rescue. But I was no longer in the business of saving those who had once celebrated my exclusion. Instead, I slipped on my coat and went for a walk downtown. The air was crisp, carrying the first bite of autumn. Storefronts glowed with golden light, windows dressed in holiday colors. A little girl tugged at her mother's hand, laughing as she pointed at sparkling decorations. I smiled, faintly but genuinely, realizing how long it had been since I felt joy untouched by obligation. For once, I wasn't the forgotten sibling or the unwanted guest. I was simply a woman finally living inside her own story. That night, I posted the last caption of the saga, a photo of my journal resting on my lap, one line written boldly across the page. "Exclusion isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's the beginning of your freedom." The comments poured in, friends, strangers, distant acquaintances, but I didn't feel the need to read them all. Because the words weren't for them anymore. They were for me. And for the first time, that was enough. The wedding that never happened became more than a family embarrassment. It became a parable whispered in town halls, retold in hushed tones by neighbors with raised brows. How the Coles built a celebration on arrogance and debt, and how the daughter they cast out chose silence instead of rescue. As for me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt released. And in that release, I understood something I had been chasing for years. Revenge doesn't always come with fire and fury. Sometimes it arrives as quiet, steady peace. Peace found in the life you build beyond the reach of those who once tried to dictate your worth. In my apartment, morning sunlight spilled across the floorboards, warm and golden. A cup of coffee steamed on the desk beside me, its aroma grounding me in a life that finally felt like mine. My phone lay silent, no longer buzzing with guilt-laced pleas, no longer chaining me to the role of fixer, savior, or invisible provider. Silence had once been a wound. Now it wrapped around me like armor. I opened my journal, the one that had absorbed every tear and revelation during these months. Its pages, filled with jagged handwriting, told the story of exclusion transformed into clarity. On the final page, I wrote slowly and deliberately, "They erased me from their table, but in doing so, they set me free. I don't need a seat there anymore. I built my own table. And at mine, love never comes with conditions." That evening, I scrolled through photos from the trip I had taken. Sunsets over cobblestone streets, Quiet meals in hidden cafes, laughter shining on the faces of kind strangers who knew nothing of my history. These weren't images of escape. They were proof. Proof that life could be beautiful without their approval, that joy could bloom outside the suffocating walls of family. The irony was sharp, almost poetic. They had barred me from celebrating their union, yet in the end they had gifted me my own. When everything was said and done, they were left with nothing but fractured promises and empty chairs. I, the so-called disappointment, was the only one who had found something lasting. I didn't gloat. I didn't rub salt in their wounds. I simply chose peace. And in that peace was the sharpest justice of all. Because when the speeches fade, when the guests go home, and when the debt collectors knock, all that remains is the truth. And the truth was this: I had always belonged, not in their shadow, not in their script, but in the story I chose to write for myself.